Over the last 18 months or so, I've been developing learning threads associated with Systems Thinking World and Systems Wiki, and there's been one aspect of it that's been giving me real heartburn and headaches for quite some time, and I think I've got it sorted out, and I'd like to provide an update as to what the current set of thoughts are regarding creating learning threads within Systems Wiki. It started at one point in time with a concept called 1 plus 1 equals, and where this label came from is probably a basis for a video on its own. But the idea was to create a set of well-focused, reusable concept models, which existed as a YouTube video embedded in a wiki page, and the wiki page was in fact part of multiple categories, and the video was done in such a way so that it could be used as a component in multiple learning threads. So that worked sort of well for a while, though the problem that I continued to run into is that once the video got created and embedded in the wiki page, more often than not, the wiki page turned out to be so thread specific that it really wasn't reusable in a different thread. Now, this is a particular page from the virtual systemic inquiry learning thread, and it was laid out so that the overall page for the thread was something that you could get to from the center in this manner, so that here are all of the modules that are part of that learning thread, and you can go forward or backward through in a sequence of all of the various models that are part of that thread. Though that particular page, because it ended up being labeled virtual systemic inquiry, the concept of virtual collaboration that was developed as part of this learning thread just couldn't be used anywhere else. And that was in fact something that just bothered me to no end, because the initial thought was to create a set of learning modules, learning concept modules that could in fact be used in numerous learning threads. So after pondering it and being annoyed by the situation for a long time, and the discussions with a few people, in particular Jeff McDonald in Sydney, it got me to thinking about a metro map, and thinking about, and this happens to be a diagram for the Washington, D.C. metro, and thinking about it in terms of each line in this map is in fact a learning thread, and each stop on the line is a concept which is part of that thread, so that to go from here to here, one walks through that sequence of concepts to actually finish the learning thread. And there are places where those concepts or those stops are actually on multiple lines. So I took that and worked it back into what I was doing, or what I was thinking about in terms of learning threads, and I put together this concept model to think about, well, the red line represents one learning thread, and the blue line represents a second learning thread, and there are in fact places where those concept pages are used in multiple threads, and for each page itself, it consists of a video with a list of what the individual components are that appear in that video for reference, for convenience of the user, with an overview description sufficient for someone to decide whether or not they actually want to use the video. This is not actually a script for the video. It's simply an overview to talk about what the video is meant to convey to the person that watches it, and a segment of the page that lists all of the related concepts, deeper learning references in case someone wants to pursue this particular concept more in depth. And that the difference between related concepts and references is that related concepts will almost always be connected to other concept pages within the wiki, whereas references might be other videos or um, pages on the internet or PDFs on the internet somewhere else that are a more in-depth description of information related to that concept. And that concept page actually ends up being identified as part of multiple categories within the wiki itself. So if I take this concept and take it back to a page in the wiki itself, I end up, this is in fact the landing page, or the initial page for the Systemic Perspective Foundation's learning thread. Notice that the navigations are gone across the top, and the related concepts, all of these concepts are in fact those stops on the learning thread, and when completed, it in fact provides one with hopefully a complete understanding of what this larger concept is meant to be about. And when one then goes from the overview of the learning thread itself to the first concept, that page also doesn't have the navigation on it. Though when you look down in related concepts, the navigation through from one concept to another has become part of related concepts. So I can go back to the foundations page, which was where this particular thread started. I'm on the system page, or I can go next to the systems thinking page, and on that page, when I get there in related concepts, I can now go back up to foundations, which is the launch point or the launch page for this sequence, or I can go to the next concept that's part of the sequence, or back to system, which was the previous concept. And it now becomes relatively easy to envision having several lines in related concepts just like this, so that there might be the foundations line, there might be the archetypes line, there might be the virtual systemic inquiry line, and they are in fact all related concepts, or point to related concepts, which are related to whatever concept happens to be on this page. So as it turned out, the answer seemed to sift itself out way too easy, and it was simply taking time to look at an individual concept page in the context of a whole learning thread, but then also looking at that learning thread in the context of a whole set of learning threads to get a sense of how to allow a concept to be generic and also be wired into a learning thread or into multiple learning threads if appropriate. And now the only thing left to do is for me to go edit a very large number of wiki pages to sort this all back out so that the flows go right. So I hope this has been helpful, and more updates to come. Take care. Bye.